Imagine it is 2033. NFTs are no longer a thing. They are the thing. Perhaps they aren't even referred to as NFTs. They're just called digitals or digital collectibles. In 2033, most brands have tapped into conveying their brands through digital games, digital collectibles. Everyone has different digital collectibles representing the things they care about. The days of decking out your house in the colors of your favorite football team aren't completely gone, but they aren't near as relevant as most people have digital spaces that represent the things they love. And many people spend hours per week and sometimes per day making sure that their space is perfect. Well, today we have a special guest from one of my favorite crypto projects in the whole space, the community manager from Ekomi, Rhys. Rhys is joining us in just a minute, and I can't wait. Now, I remember David and Dan's early presentation of Ekomi back in 2018. It's come light years forward since then, with the app featuring digital collectibles from the top world brands like Disney, DC, Marvel, Back to the Future, Star Trek, and more. Also, digital comics from Marvel, which I think is amazing. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain. If you like money in crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family by liking this video and subscribing with the all notifications bell enabled. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. My co-host, Doctor of Stuff, is not either. We're both crypto investors, and we share with you how we think about the crypto market and often specific cryptos that we like. And today, our special guest is amazing, and we're grateful to him to give us some time to join us on the channel. Special shout out to our Patreon members. We do have a private Discord that our Patreon members get access to. Well, make it rain on that like button. Strap in for the show. Today, I'm joined by my co-host, Doctor of Stuff. I love his deep analytical skills and his way of looking at projects. And when I need to get caught up on the latest with VeVe, there's no one better. I call Doctor of Stuff.
Hey, how's it going, Rain?
Good. Thank you for helping set up this interview with Rhys. I appreciate it very much.
Oh, I can't even tell you how happy I am that Rhys was willing and able to join us on the AMA, and I am excited to get into some of these questions and talk to him as you and I are both pretty heavily invested in Omi and are interested in kind of the progress and what's going on there.
Awesome. Well, let's welcome one of the community's favorite members of the Ekomi team, Rhys. Rhys, thanks so much for joining us.
What's up, Rhys?
How are we?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Doing really well. It's a little grey here today in Vancouver, but you know, spirits are high. The year's new. Everyone's feeling fresh. Yeah, it's a good time to be in crypto, I think.
It was good to meet you a few months back at DesignerCon. I put my DesignerCon t-shirt where I got signatures from the team back there. That was such a fun event.
Oh man, it was. It's all the events are really surreal, but that one for us was the 1 year anniversary, right? We did DesignerCon the year before, and I've said this to a few people recently, but you know, that first event we had 2 trestle tables and a black curtain. Like, it wasn't, the production quality wasn't that high, you know, so it was truly chalk and cheese between that and the most recent DesignerCon. But thanks for coming out first and foremost, and to everybody else who joined. Doctor of Stuff, I can see.
Oh yeah, I got to represent that. Jermaine Rogers. I waited in line. I met some quality VeVe fan out there just waiting, right, for this drop. Decon was so exciting, and it's funny. I'm bummed that I didn't get to go to that first Decon, but just to go to that year anniversary one and just see the growth and just. Man, people were there. Like, obviously they love VeVe, but like seeing community interact with the people that they've interacted with online for so long and finally be able to see them in person and make that connection. That was special. That was special. So thanks for putting that on. That was such a blast. I already have my ticket for next year's Decon. Well, I guess this year's Decon coming up. Yeah, because it was so much fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, you alluded to the growth there. You know, someone pointed out that there were more people at our booth at that Decon than we had users in the app sort of 2 years before that, right? So to see that come together and the amount of people just fly in from across the country and across the world for that was just, they're the most surreal and humbling parts of this story, you know, and as you say, the connections that people make, like the team are almost white noise at that point. You've heard us speak that many times and present this information. So it's really just a great way to put an event on that people can meet each other. And obviously, we have some after parties and a little bit of fun there too.
They were a lot of fun. Well, we were walking around. I think Dr. Stuff was with me and some other people. And we were walking around and some people come up to us and they're like, what's this VeVe thing that everybody in the whole hall is talking about? So we were trying to, tell them what it was
trying to bring on some new users.
There was so much energy, right? The booth had huge attendance, and a lot of the other, tables, they're looking around, they're like, what do they have going on?
Yeah, even Mark Bricky, he's the host of Adventures in Design, the podcast, and he hosts the main stage for the DesignCon event. And we met him the year previously, and he started to wrap his head around VeVe. We had been working with DesignCon specifically to launch a lot of their artist drops. And he came over to our booth after we did that stage panel talk and was just blown away, right? Because he had seen the transition from the year before as well. Mm. And I think everybody there, Kozik and Jermaine and everyone, is looking around at this physical product space that they have always operated in and been, quite successful in. But are realizing now that, okay, digital is the path forward from this point, right? Because as you said, we had the busiest booth of the entire thing, and we don't sell any physical products, right? It's a digital only sort of thing. So, yeah, to see the lights, a lot of these artists understood it early, but to actually see that kind of exemplified year after year now and see the momentum growing behind that, I think everybody's really, truly starting to grasp what digital collectibles and digital art can mean to the world.
Yeah, we had this discussion around the Ekomiverse yesterday, and Randy shared something that also, he said, turned on a light bulb for him. It also turned on a light bulb for me. When it's some movie he was watching, and they're like, stop playing with your Barbie dolls. She said, I'm not playing with my Barbie dolls. I'm accessorizing. And we were talking about accessorizing in the metaverse and everything. And it's like, oh my gosh, that is the way this is going to go, right? That people, like I talked about in the prelude, like, people are going to have their spaces, right? They're going to have these little rooms that, like, people that are fans of different football clubs or even American football, like the Denver Broncos or whatever, they're going to have their spaces decked out with that stuff. And it will no longer like clutter up their whole homes. Like, they can collect toys. I had a friend that collected toys, and he had a room in it. He didn't have a big house. One whole room was like filled up with toys, and his wife hated it. And it won't have to do that anymore, right?
Yeah, exactly right. It's an interesting point you touch on, and I've said this to a few people in the past. Our houses are getting smaller, right? Apartments are getting smaller, properties are getting smaller and more expensive. So there is genuinely less room for stuff, right? So this is actually giving people a way to continue to celebrate the things they're fans of, but in a much more succinct way, I suppose. And then, as you say, right, it's you don't need someone to come over to your stuff room anymore to see your collection. You send them your link in the metaverse, and they go into your home space and see it all there. And you can be next to them in that home space, even though you're on the other side of the world, right? We really haven't quite explored that connection yet. But I think that when that penny drops for people, it will make it all more real, which is counterintuitive when we talk about being in a digital space. But people are really attaching that nostalgia, that emotional connection to all of these things.
Yeah, I think when I remember back in the MySpace days, as people tried to individualize, right, their own little space, right? And that's what I think of with all of the IP that VeVe has and why this is such a big deal. I think of the people like VeVe Magic, right? And I mean, her connection to Disneyland, like, that truly is a part of who she is and her identity, right? She'll be able to bring that into her metaverse or the VeVeverse, right, into her space. And I think that is so important is all of this IP that you have, the nostalgia, like, that's a part of people's lives, and bringing that in and making that the digital, the accessorizing, right? I mean, that's what people do, right? They have, like, I'm wearing this, like, not just to show it up, like, I love this, right? This is now a part of, like, my history, and I have the digital collectible, like, it's phenomenal, and I just think I love that tie-in of the digital, bringing in the IP, and then that's why I'm so excited about the VeVeverse, right? And making my own home within that, with all the collectibles that really speak to who I am, and bring that in with all the tie-ins of the nostalgia tied to the IP.
Exactly. And you know, using VeVe Magic and Disneyland as an example, it's not that the physical is going away, but now you have this immersive take-home experience that you can continue to enjoy when you're not at Disneyland, right? Or, you know, you can enjoy that sort of fandom there. So yeah, it's changing the way that I think we look at fan interaction. It's definitely changing the way that all these brands and IPs are starting to look at fan interaction and rewards and incentives and all of those things too. And most of them are doing it from a point of storytelling, right? That's how we communicate as people, and that's how they effectively communicate their product strategies and those things as well. So yeah, it's almost overwhelming how much this is going to integrate into our lives in the next decade, and to be sort of at the forefront of that and shaping these experiences the way that we think they should happen, and working with these brands who have been so successful at storytelling for tens or, you know, on decades. Like it's just an amazing thing to be a part of.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I opened this up and told the community to ask whatever questions they have. Now, you work on the Ekomi side, so if we get any questions you can't talk about, by all means mention that. But I mean, obviously we're curious human beings. We always love to know like exactly what's going on, and Ekomi has built a big fan base, but with that fan base we're like, okay, we want to know when this is coming up and when this is coming up. We did get the search function, which is awesome. In fact, you brought in a new technical person, Mitch, right? And he started November, December, and so he helped get this rolled out.
Mitch is our product manager now.
Okay.
So he's overseeing basically the entire development team, really refined the way that we go about things and our development cadence. You know, the first 2 years of operation, full credit to the devs. You know, they got us out of a lot of tight spots, especially when, you know, the markets went down and we got attacked by bots and everything under the sun. But now it's time to really mature as a company and actually have some much more defined, not rules necessarily, but a much more defined development cadence. The intention with this year is to really be delivering a new feature every 2 weeks or thereabouts, which is what he's really helping to put in. And coupled with that, we onboarded a new CTO in the middle of last year. So he took a few months to come up to speed. Obviously, there's a lot of moving parts with this company now, right? Aside from all of the design and development, then all the technical and back end of VeVe, plus the crypto and Ekomi side, plus the VeVeverse. So it's not a small feat to come in and understand all of the operation of the business, but those two working together are an absolute dream team.
Yeah, that is really good to hear, because one of my concerns, now I followed, like I saw some of the first AMAs with Dan and David in 2018 and my friend CJ's channel when they were talking about this vision of what they had. So I've been kind of tracking Ekomi since that time, but really tracking it heavily since March of 2021, and just looking at the development, and definitely some concerns with the timelines. In tech, timelines often get missed, but the number of them that were getting missed and pushed back was a concern. And I was like, wow, VeVe has the chance to win it in this space. When we talk about digital collectibles for the next 30 years, VeVe's in the lead for that. But if they don't get the right tech team in to continue to push forward, those competitors are chomping at the heels. And competitors come in different ways. It could be video games that create massive IP. It could be like other ones they're trying to come in. VeVe's taken the massive lead because they've gotten some of the best intellectual property in the world. But, you know, as big fans, we're like, oh, you know, how do we make sure Ekomi doesn't end up being like the MySpace, passed up by someone else, even though they had the premier lead position, right? Yeah. So I think a lot of the fans in the back, if we look at the chat, right, we see a lot of questions about dates like Master Collector Program and the OMI Utility Program. I wondered if we could spend just a second on the OMI Utility Program. If I can bring up the roadmap, because I'm glad that you guys put that together. That's super helpful.
I look at it way more often than I probably should. Like, has anything moved? Has anything moved?
And look, at the moment, just to give people some insight, you know, we're updating these circles as some form of significant progress is made. And once we really get into this proper development cadence, then it'll be much easier to say, okay, this is what's being worked on now. We're expecting an end date by this date. So it won't just be these frustrating red circles that everyone likes to abuse me about, basically.
So this really does communicate to us. The focus right now is crypto to gem, and then the waitlist drop system.
Yes.
Yes.
So the crypto to gem, obviously things got put on hold when we opened Twitter 2 weeks ago and found out Wire's services were being halted. And then a week later, they weren't being halted because they're just, if people don't understand, Wire is it FDIC insured, you call it in the US? They're a regulated entity, basically.
Yeah,
So,
I was like, they're not FDIC insured because they're not a financial institution, but they are a regulated entity within the United States.
yes.
Yeah.
So there
So
is
money
a bit of
transmitter, right?
yeah. So there's a backstop there, and they obviously had access to some funding to resume those services. So we obviously put everything, crypto pay-in and things went on hold while we tried to integrate another third-party provider. And we're continuing with Wire now tentatively just to make sure that they can deliver on those things. And crypto pay-in, I think we had let in the first 4 or 5 batches of users. And then there were a number of issues that we needed to work through. So that's on hold until those issues are resolved. And then the beta access will continue to roll out. And if anyone hasn't seen it, we did put an article on the VeVe blog last week that actually just explains that rollout process for each new feature, just so that everyone's aware of like, okay, here is how it actually takes place. Here's how many users we let into the feature, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I did read through that, and that was very helpful to understand kind of how many people and the timelines there right before you start rolling it out to the wider audience. I think that's really important. And I do have to give you guys props on, I still think communication could improve, but I have seen an improvement in the number of articles that are coming out, or, even in the AMAs, there's more typical, like about every 2 weeks, you're coming out with like an AMA or additional information there. So props to that. And I do like these red circles. It would be, I do have a question on that. When you're talking about, as you get this proper cadence down, then things will start progressing. Do you have a timeline on when you believe that proper cadence will be established to where we can start expecting those 2-week kind of updates?
Yeah, we're pretty much there now. The Wire thing obviously threw us out by a couple of weeks. But I would expect, sort of from the 1st of February, we really start to roll things out and ramp up the speed that we're delivering. We've also recently, on the VeVe side, brought in Corey and Ryan. So just having more hands on deck is making a huge difference, right? Prior to that, it's sort of myself and Alex running around trying to do a bit of everything. So even those things make a huge difference to the way that we can not just interact with the community and improve those communications, but with our licensors as well, right? There's so many license partners now, and they always want a piece of us for some task or some new product. So even just being able to communicate more effectively with everybody involved is rapidly changing what we do.
That's great.
So these two are in focus right now. Are you able to share? So that would be the waitlist drop system and crypto to gem. What is then on the back burner, like following up after that? Can you share?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So if you scroll down that page a little bit, we've kind of outlined the order of the build. So crypto to gem is the first thing. It allows crypto pay-in, but there's obviously a small fee that starts to fund that Omi to gem pool, right? And that will eventually be redeemed. But the next most important part of this process is building our wallet infrastructure. And it gets more complicated because you have a wallet system that needs to obviously work within the VeVe web app, so that you can interact on the platform. But we have to future-proof these things for the VeVeverse and also to continue to be blockchain agnostic, right? I don't think anything will happen to IMX, but you have to build those redundancies into these systems, right? And when we look ahead to the VeVeverse, those wallets have to obviously reference your VeVe account and your login credentials and whatnot to display those. There has to be a link to an external wallet if you're going to bring in, external NFTs to put them in your home space. So there's no real one-click solution to this problem. We're definitely going to be sort of pioneering some of our own infrastructure that works between all systems and communicates as such. But that's probably the biggest step in that core infrastructure process. I think on the rest of that page, we have like the burn rewards trackers and things like that. Just having those systems in place so that when you start using the Omi token inside the app, everything is tracked correctly. You're earning those burn reward points, and you can, it has to be done in a way that's easy to understand, because we're still very much dealing with a non-crypto audience that comes into VeVe, right? That is our target market. It's the collectors market. It's not the crypto bros and the NFT heads, right? So it's all got to be done in a way that is quite seamless and easy to understand, because we're dealing with people's financial assets and crypto and all those things.
Now, is the focus to get OUP knocked out and then maybe Master Collector Program? Are they is development towards that running in tandem? We saw a question in here about MCP.
Running in tandem, yeah. More work has been done on the MCP, purely because that development started earlier. But Mitch and Nestor are actually in the process of doubling our development team. So they'll put on 2 or 3 new squads, which will, again, help to really speed up our development cadence.
That's awesome to hear.
Yeah. Oh, it's very necessary at this point. I mean, these roadmaps aren't small, right? Obviously, the OUP alone is quite an undertaking. MCP plans are quite an undertaking. Then you throw the VeVeverse in the mix as well. So it's absolutely necessary for us to move forward from here.
So I just have a quick question, just regarding kind of following in line with Rain's question about MCP, working on the MCP at the same time you're working on OUP. And this question is from Hello K, but he's asking if the devs have the capability to work on the different OUP features concurrently, right? So you have the Omni Gem, but are they also working on other aspects of the OUP program at the same time, while there's a stop here that they can work on those others? Or can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, not yet. If we're being upfront with each other, that core infrastructure needs to be sort of built.
Yeah, that layer 2 integration, right?
Once that's done, then yes, there's definitely going to be some tandem development, especially some features. There's some crossover, right? Like the bronze tickets get you additional spots in the waitlist, but MCP points will also do the same. So if the redemption mechanism is similar, then those features can develop concurrently. Whereas some other ones will be, you have to create new items and index new bits in the back end to make them happen.
I wanted to ask another frequent question. I put out a tweet about a week ago that got tons of engagement just prepping for this interview. And one of the other big questions had to do with additional exchanges that more people are on where Omi is. I know you get asked this all the time, but we want to know what you can share.
Yeah. I mean, I can share the logic more than anything.
Okay.
Which is that most exchanges, and we in particular, don't really see value in listing until there's demand for the token, right? Because otherwise, it is just the same pump and dump that you get all the time in crypto. There's initial excitement on an exchange listing, and then it falls away, right? Without that real utility coming in. Now, exchanges look at things the same way, especially with heavier regulation coming in now, and the exchange partners that we are going after. We're not really, we're obviously kind of done with the lower tier where things are available now. So it's more a matter of lining things up when there's real demand for the token and real utility. Now, that doesn't just have to come from our ecosystem, right? We obviously have our first sort of partner program initiative coming out with Tengoku Senso, which is a play and earn game, and there's incentives there for using the Omi token in that game as well. So as soon as we start to see some genuine demand for that token, we can start pressing play on new listings.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
A lot.
I understand that.
If people are excited about it for the token pump out of it, it wouldn't make sense to put it on for that reason. If they're looking for just easier access than having to get it through Bit4X or Uniswap trade for it, I totally get that.
Yeah, and I understand it, right? We're all crypto people, and I understand what an exchange listing can do, and it's not just price appreciation; it's token awareness, right, and ecosystem awareness. So we're fully aware of all of those functions. But I personally think that the one feature that will give give people the easiest access to the token is just being able to purchase it inside the app, right, in the web app. One click, buy to L2. Now you can use your token, right? That's much more effective than trying to teach a largely non-crypto audience how to install their own wallets, why they have to hand over their passports to an exchange and go through the process of purchasing here and you need a fiat on-ramp. You need to, there's so many more steps in that than just open the VeVe app, click a buy button, So I think that will be much more effective.
So I want to touch on that real quick, Rhys, because this is one of my, like, I'm really excited about this. If I'm just want to dive a little bit deeper. One of the OUP development portions is it says buy Omi on the web app, right? And I think that you're alluding to that, basically, that I just go on to VeVe.me and I can go and purchase. Now, can I purchase? Will I be able to purchase Omi with a credit card? Number one, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it will depend on the payment services provider.
Yeah, if it's MoonPay or something similar like that,
something
right?
similar, right? Like Wire has the ability to build that sort of infrastructure too.
Okay.
With them, there's obviously other service providers that we are looking at and have looked at. So yes, that's kind of, it should be as easy as buying gems in the app, right? Zero understanding, one-click purchase. It goes to your in-app Omi wallet. It's already on layer 2, so you don't need to buy from an exchange, then try to bridge it, any of those things. Because that'll teaching people how to buy crypto is one thing. Then teaching them how to bridge that crypto is a whole other journey, right?
I remember the first time I tried to bridge some crypto, and it took like 45 minutes to bridge, and I was like, is it gone? Like, what happened, right? And it's just circling, and you don't know. It's a terrifying moment, and so I love that. The easier that we can make these processes, the larger the mainstream adoption is going to be, right? People don't want to do that. So that's one of my, so here's the second question. I think I already know the answer, but is there any thought about trying to make that available in the app, or is it because of that potential, that 30% cut right initially, that it just doesn't make sense to do it on the app?
It's actually the restrictions. You can't have alternative currencies or payment methods in the app stores, right? Android's not so bad. iOS, you can't do it, right? And that's what sort of pushed us down this path 2 years ago, right? When the app first launched, you could use Omi in the app, right? You could swap it for gems and you could buy collectibles. And then eventually it was like, hey, we're going to delist your app if you don't remove this payment method, right? And then we had to spend the next 12 months, 18 months rebuilding for the web, right? For this to even be able to kind of integrate these features. So I think that little detail gets missed a fair bit when people look at the timelines, right? We kind of had this, we built for mobile first, and now we've got to rebuild the whole thing for a web app before we can actually integrate some of these plans. So yeah, that's just a little bit of extra info for people.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Dre Day asked a question. He said, ask if the crypto in and out issues, are they legal issues that are holding up, or technical issues as far as having crypto come in and out to buy?
At the moment, the pay in, it's in that beta testing process. So whatever bugs they have found, they're refining. I think we're also integrating some more sort of KYC parameters that are a bit stronger there as well, which just, obviously if things are going to and from a bank account, it's a bit easier to track. If they're going to and from a crypto wallet, it's not so easy. And we always err on the side of caution there with any of those kind of things. So yeah, I think that's more the technical holdup. Yeah.
Perfect. So we had a couple of questions about when Barbie, which actually leads to a different question, right? Which is, what about the ability to like accessorize, right? To have some kind of things. We were talking yesterday and around the Ekomi verse, and we had VeVe Queen on, and we were talking about, being able to have Barbies and dress up or something like that, right? Some kind of accessorizing. And if that's what would bring women in, because imagine, most of the crypto space is like 97% male, and VeVe might have a slightly higher percentage female than that. But like, how to double your crowd is, what is it that, women would love to see in collectibles? And, I think the accessorizing really answers that. Is that a direction that because it's kind of different than like statues, right? Like Batman versus crocodile statue or something.
Yeah, I think the first accessorizing we'll see will be your avatars, customizable avatars. So you're actually accessorizing yourself as opposed to these kind of standalone pieces. And that's more of a, there's quite a lot of limitation in terms of just the development time it takes. If we were to add 5 different capes or different skins and how they move and all of these things to every single collectible, or there's a lot of work that goes into that customization. Whereas something like customizing your avatars, be it with licensed content or just through Ready Player Me and these kind of avatar services, I think that's more likely to be the first step of customization.
Got it.
Outside of customizing your actual displays and home space.
So is VeVe going to get licensors, or is Ekomi going to go to like Louis Vuitton or other things so that you can have like really cool shades or whatever on your avatar?
I can not confirm or deny these facts. What is that for
brands, right? Yeah, I've got my Gucci shades and
yeah. I mean, look, obviously we're in the licensing game, and there's a lot of optionality and potential there. But until VeVe is announcing something, I can't open my mouth on that.
Got it. Dr. Stuff, what questions do you have?
Yeah. So here's a question related to staking with OUP, right? So has the team thought about, so there's been a lot of concerns with centralized exchanges going down, the fraud that's been in there, and even just staking contracts or security around websites getting hacked. So the question is, has the team thought about some sort of soft staking where maybe the OMI could still stay in the cold wallet while still being staked on the VeVe app to get some of those rewards? Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So at the moment, especially because it's an L2 integration, I don't think you could stake directly from any cold storage wallet straight to L2. Yeah. That may change, right? And ledgers and things may bring out that. I'm assuming they will continue to integrate these chains and that ability. But no, at the moment, the thinking is more that we would have a centralized staking wallet, effectively like a spot wallet, acts on an exchange. You would have OMI in your personal user wallet on VeVe, and you would choose to deposit it to that staking wallet, right? And that's kind of stored in our servers and our centralized database, the tracking of all of those things, the same way an exchange manages those transactions. That may change, right? We're definitely bringing in a lot of experts to help us design a system that is future-proofed as much as possible. But I think that's how it will operate. Now, to that point, and I understand people's fear of centralized exchanges going down and all those things, but we started in crypto security, right? We obviously have our own cold storage wallet. We really do understand the depths of what it takes to secure these assets. And we are obviously already doing that with VeVe, right? We are custodying your in-app tokens and your in-app collectibles, right? They all live within our system. So yeah, I don't think that we have any concerns about the security and what we need to be aware of and across to really secure that kind of system. But I think that functionally that's the way it would operate.
Okay.
Bobby asked an interesting question. When on interoperability for artists, are we waiting on immutable X to support royalties in their smart contracts? I'm not 100% sure what he's asking here. Does he mean like the artists can come in and create additional functionality for something they released on VeVe? I think is where he's going with that.
I think that's probably referencing something, from sort of 12, 18 months ago, where we said when interoperability is available, it's likely that it will be the independent artists that enable that feature first because they have more control over their works. In terms of are we waiting on IMX? Yes, I think so. I think there is a bit of we're waiting on some integrations from them to allow those royalties. I think you can do it on the IMX marketplace, but not external marketplaces. And then there's also a bit of a limitation if something is launched on layer 2 and then that collectible is rolled down to layer 1. Then I don't think those contracts interact the same way. There's no royalty that can be paid there. So there are a few functional limitations there that prevent it. And on top of that, we're just not quite there on the development roadmap yet as well. Got it.
I'm just scanning through here. Thanks for the super chat here from Aldis Haveli. Yeah, we greatly appreciate that. We got a super sticker earlier. Let me pull that up. Thank you for that. Great questions. There's some questions I'm not going into, like somebody really wants to know about the case with Ben Gidenzi. If you don't want to go into that, it can create, going into that stuff can create additional legal problems.
Yeah.
And so the goal of this is not to create further problems for Ekomi to have to then deal with.
Do that.
Yeah,
because we want these other milestones to get hit. I understand being curious about that. We're all curious about that, but this isn't the forum to answer that question. So it's not that I'm ignoring you, but I'm ignoring you on that question.
Yeah, I think that's
cool. Let's see. I'm just scanning through here. Dr. Stuff, you have more questions? I'll scan through and see some other comments that.
Yeah. Okay. So I've had, and this has been one I've debated heatedly multiple times, like over the last year. Some people believe that if Omi token, like that the Omi token is inextricably tied to the VeVe app, and without Omi, the VeVe app could not function. My understanding and stance is that, I mean, you've added utility to the Omi token by bringing it in, by creating those burn mechanisms. But for whatever reason, if the reserve wallet happened to go to zero, everything would still function normally on the app. But it's really a utility function that the team has embedded for Omi to do that, right? I just want to make sure that that's clear, like that I understand that correctly, or if you can clarify if I'm misunderstanding something, right?
No, you've understood both. So it was very crucial to the system's operation when we first launched the app, right? And there was the ability to swap Omi to gems, and whenever you made a collectible purchase from the store, those gems were buying Omi tokens, moving them from the reserve to the vault. When you purchased a collectible, those tokens went through your user wallet, generated the transaction history, were exchanged for the collectible, and then they went out to the burn wallet, right? So it was a very crucial part of that system mechanic. Now, it got watered down when we had to remove the Omi to gem feature because of the App Store restrictions. And then when we had that huge burst of adoption in sort of February, March in 2021, and the app effectively fell apart, we had to re-engineer the entire system, right? So from that point, instead of tokens going through the user wallets where they were getting stuck, there were some users that couldn't do anything for months at a time. So we rebuilt and we had to audit everything and change. So Michael, the CTO at the time, and the devs re-engineered the entire back-end system to batch transactions. So you would still be attributed to each account, but pretty well from that point, that token flow movement, was watered down a bit further, right? It kind of became not irrelevant, because at the time we still had the intention of doing these buybacks, right? And that would still maintain at least some of the original intention of that function. But after waiting now for the better part of 18 months, 2 years, and there's still not being any real clarity around whether we can legally buy those tokens back and not face issues later, that's how the new OUP system came about. So it was basically like, okay, here's what we started with and what we thought was going to happen and how it would play out. Didn't go that way, so now let's build in a different system that is much more user-friendly and functional for people. But it also means now that because that system is redundant, we will eventually just do away with it, right? And all token interactions in VeVe are coming from the circulating supply, which is easier to understand for most people, right? And by integrating the ability to just buy Omi in the web app, we no longer need to really have this system where you're buying gems and the tokens are moving in the background to represent them. So, eventually we will just wipe out that entire supply and move forward with the new system. So it takes a bit of, sorry.
So with that the reserve wallet, right, and the number of tokens, is it going to continue to burn until that goes to zero, and that's how it's phased out, right?
It will continue to burn for now, purely because, if we're being honest, there's not much point spending the engineering time to rejig that part of the system. Okay. It's just operating in the background, and largely we can all forget about it. But when the time comes, when we've ticked some of these other boxes and we have a bit of spare capacity, no, I think they'll re-engineer the system and just remove it. We don't really need to let it run all the way to zero.
Okay.
We had a question here from Living Aloha. She says, Mahalo, Rhys. When will the web app come out of beta? Reason, when we make support tickets for the web app, support says it's not fully supported at this time.
I wonder what the support tickets are about, out of curiosity. That's a really good question. Really good question. To be honest with you, I didn't realize it said it was still in beta. So I will find out and let you know on the next AMA. Yeah, look, I think it's. I think obviously the web app is quite new compared to the mobile app, right? And if we had our way, we'd probably still have a beta tag inside the mobile app. But again, the app stores don't let you have a live beta app, in downloadable app in the stores. So a few restrictions there. But I would think with the web app, once some of these other key features are done and out of the way, the merge accounts, we now have search bar phase 1 coming in. Search bar phase 2, I would argue we would need before we would comfortably say it's not in beta anymore. So there's probably just a few features like that really need to be road tested.
Great. I'm going to scan through for some more questions. We had a couple good ones.
I have a question for you guys. If you,
yeah,
because we're putting the feelers out there. What and it's okay if you haven't considered this yet, but what Omi token utilities would you like to see in the VeVeverse? What is there anything that stands out? You think this is what I'd love to do with my tokens?
I do like the staking tiers thing, right? Because what are tokens really needed for, right? So I think about this. I'm an investor going back 25 years now. What do tokens really mean, right? They don't give you ownership in a project. So there has to be some kind of use case. And I saw in the last crypto winter, there was a company that their token went up during the crypto winter, whereas everything else went down. In fact, there's like 3.5x while most things went down, and that company was Binance. And the reason was they continued to give it utility. Their initial utility when they launched, they gave a utility, but along the way, their CEO figured out new ways to give it utility and really reward those that believed in their company, that were holding the token. And that was amazing to see. I'll always be a fan of CZ for that. And I didn't hold any BNB token at the time because the utility at the time was it would save you some money on trading the exchange. And then they said, you have staking tiers, and this will allow you to get into these projects that we're launching. So what was cool is that gave it utility, and it actually increased the value to people, even when most people were leaving crypto in the last crypto winter. We're again in one of those crypto winters, and you see some of that in the comments, right? Just the frustration people feel because they feel like things, essentially, they wouldn't even care about the bumps in the roadmap if the token price was going up, but it's not. And they're just feeling frustrated because a week in crypto literally feels like 3 months worth of time, right?
Yeah.
Emotionally, it just kind of seems like it takes forever. And so then it feels like everything takes forever. So the staking tiers, I like. The Omi utility program, I like. I like the idea of the bronze tickets, the silver tickets, the gold tickets. At first, I really had to think about that. And I was like, okay. And the more I thought about it, I was like, man, these bronze tickets and the fact that you can even buy them is amazing. And I was like, that's going to deliver some real utility to the Omi token, which I like. And I like the staking tiers too, because what will happen is once this stuff comes out, people will say, well, shoot, I want this staking tier because I want those benefits. So they'll buy it and it will start to pump the token price. And as that happens, more people will come in because they'll see the token pumping. Because if you noticed in March of 2021, this huge wave of people, it was so incredible, came into Omi. They didn't even know anything about crypto. In fact, their second buy in the whole crypto space was Omi. And if they could have bought it directly, their first buy would have been Omi. Because the whole reason they bought anything else was just to be able to send it to some exchange where they could get Omi and then buy it. So I had all these people asking me about Omi, and they didn't know anything about anything else in crypto. And I was like, what? This is crazy. This project can attract people that don't otherwise know anything about crypto, and they're buying Omi. It would be their very first purchase in the crypto space. But some of that came because of the pump, and then they were looking into it, and they're like, oh, they have Batman and other things. So I think that kind of thing can happen again, but it'll have to be kicked off by a utility that even in the bear market, if this utility rolls out, we could see the price then reflect the value people are feeling from it, because people are trying to hold it just to get exclusive things. And what I would love to see is actually exclusive things for people at the different staking tiers. Maybe some releases that only people at the staking tiers get, period. They just get it surprise airdropped, right? Like maybe there's some like Mickey statue, and if you're holding a certain tier, you just surprise airdropped a bronze one or something, and then a silver one, and then a gold one, then a diamond one. Just some things like that just reward people for creating those staking tiers. And some people say, I can't afford the most expensive one. Well, because it's based on the value of what the Omi is, you don't have to, because remember, the token is actually quite low right now. I'm an investor, and I speculate on this stuff, so I don't have a magic crystal ball to see into the future. But if what I think happens, if you currently have enough for the lowest tier, there might come a point that that's enough value to be in the highest tier.
Yeah, especially if the incentives are strong enough and the staking program is popular enough, right? And to your point, as we look ahead to the VeVeverse and the next sort of product rollouts, we can continue to utilize those staking tiers, right? The rewards that you can see there now in the OUP won't be the only rewards that come to those tiers. And it gives us a lot of opportunity to potentially level up and have some business staking tiers if we're looking at access to in the VeVeverse, you'll be able to mint your own items and collectibles, right? Furniture and accessories and those kind of things. So there's opportunity to gate access to staking tiers for some of those kind of features as well. If you want to actually build a business within our metaverse, right? Maybe you have to be staking before you have access to certain things. So, what people see there in the OUP really is just related to the VeVe application as we know it. And then it really does open up a lot of opportunity in what I would say the unlimited space of the metaverse, right? Because it's anything that we can imagine at that point. I mean, and this isn't confirmation of anything. This is just kind of an interesting idea that I see in the metaverse. But people have this home space, and maybe you put in a garden, right, as part of your accessories. But if you want to grow that garden, if you want those trees to grow, you could wait 10 years, like in the real world, or maybe you can spend some tokens and have that progress quicker, right? So you can start to customize your space with spendables and utilities for tokens, right? So they're just ideas at this point, because it will depend on development and rollouts and all of those kind of things. But I'm just trying to paint a picture for people that there are so many more opportunities for token utility when you move into a space like that, and you're not restricted by app stores and all of those rules as well.
So I'm going to jump in and answer what things I would like to see in the VeVeverse with that token utility. I would love. I'm imagining at some point the VeVeverse is going to have little mini games and whether you open it up so that devs can create those and they can build their own economies, and I think that's typically where you will see like the most success is you open it up to the creativity of the community, and they're incentivized by saying, hey, if we build these games, we can charge, right? So they could charge in Omi, and a certain percentage goes back to VeVe or to burn the token, right? Or something like that. So being able to play those games using Omi, and maybe there's different tiers or, levels of difficulty or additional maps or something like that on games, the more Omi that you pay. I also like the idea of kind of token gating either your showrooms or your house, right, to that. I mean, I just think Dr. Profit's going to pay, one of the Vaultaholics to build. And I sat down one time and tried to think of how incredible that is going to be. I will pay, I will straight up pay to enter into that, right? His property and what he charges. So the ability to charge people to see their showrooms and to see some of those things, or even if there's like a VeVe museum of seeing like the number one mints, right? Of all of the different ones or something. And maybe it's $1 worth of Omi or something that you get in. But so those type of things, I think adds additional use case to it, and we could see some pretty high burns if that happened as well. Yeah.
To your point, right? There's an entire space for the metaverse economy, and not just paying entrance to go into someone's showroom, but what about paying the Vaultaholics to build it in the first place, right? If they accept Omi, then it could be 50% cheaper than a normal currency or whatever it happens to be. Like there's so many opportunities for those kind of interactions between people, where Omi is the base currency of the ecosystem. So I'm super excited about it. I mean, we need to get through the OUP we already have before we go too crazy on that front. But it just gives us so much more opportunity there, and it is an ecosystem that we're in full control of, as opposed to the mobile app and all those things. It makes a big difference.
Awesome. I'm really excited about ramping it up with the additional devs. That was my biggest concern, right? Is that the dev team needs to be deeper and stronger in order to roll this stuff out, because there's a lot of things planned. The competition is coming furiously towards it, and we all want to see VeVe Ekomi win, right? I'm invested in some of those competitors, but I love this. What's funny is the emotional connection, right? Even when things pumped last January on the VeVe app, right? I was like, okay, so the investor in me is screaming, take profits. But the collector in me is like, no, don't you dare sell that thing, right? So I did take profits on some, but it was painful. It was hard.
Yeah, and, it always is. It always is.
and that's a good sign. So Valentin Zamorano asks, are you guys skeptic on development on some of the features that you added in the roadmap vision of the product? Meaning, I guess, are you concerned that you won't be able to do some, I think is what he's asking?
No. I mean, we spent, assuming he's talking about the OUP specifically, we spent, the better part of 9 months, not just back and forthing ideas, but getting approvals and making sure that these things could happen in the way that we're designing them. Does that mean we won't hit roadblocks on the way? Absolutely not. I guarantee 1,000 things will go wrong because that's development. But no, at the moment, we're very confident in the features that we have and in being able to deliver them, and then in building on them, right? And especially when you're looking at things like the bird reward points, the silver tickets, right? There's new use cases and utilities we can add to those kind of features that just make it a much more effective part of the roadmap and product.
There's a question that I had heard leading up to this that somebody had asked on Twitter, and Ricky Shepard is asking it here about HRO is able to use Omi to buy NFTs, I think on the IMX marketplace, right? And they're just asking why can't we do that with VeVe NFTs?
Yeah, so VeVe's systems, we utilize IMX to mint the NFTs, the actual tokens and all of those things, but everything else is an in-house proprietary system. So it's not available on the IMX marketplace. That's effectively the reason.
You have talked in the past about making that available, but one of the differences between HRO is they have one license to manage and one licensor, and they're not managing 500 because that would have to be individual per thing, right? And then you have to make a mechanism to export some over and some not. Is that really what's holding things up?
Yeah, that's definitely part of the piece, part of the puzzle. Yeah, there's definitely, I mean, obviously, you're right, working with 200, 250 licensed partners and artists adds so many layers of complexity there. But then having the ability for some to leave the app and others not to, there's another whole development pipeline that needs to take place, aside from all the agreements and all of that. Now, it's going to happen at some point. It's just the way this industry will move. And really for the metaverse to be the metaverse collectively, you have to have that interoperability and movement of assets. But personally, I think it's been a huge part of our success in the early days, right? And a lot of people came into NFTs when they were blowing up, and interoperability became a big part of that. But for the 3-4 years before that, nobody knew what an NFT was. Licensors didn't want their products to be sold in multiple marketplaces because they didn't understand what that was either. So it's not, it's not like we're trying to gate things now. This is just how we had things designed because it was the only way we could sign these licensing deals in the first place.
Yeah, and maybe they'll be really open to bringing it on, especially if there is a way to convey royalties as they change hands on the marketplace. There's just some complexities there in individual agreements. Part of the reason why it's so hard to get licenses in like Japan, because they have 15 people that own the license and everything, right? And so this is the case in VeVe where they're dealing with 200, 250 licensors.
Yeah. And a lot of them are multi-year agreements too, don't forget. So they won't come under review until the contract is coming close to an end, and then we relook at the next options, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So I just want to address a couple things in the comments. There's an individual who keeps commenting the same thing and kind of flooding the chat. So we will never ask the team about their tokens. The team was given tokens. It's their right to do with them whatever they want. It is the equivalent of any corporation giving out stock, and those people can sell the stock whenever or whatever they want. I have no idea about Rhys's tokens. We're not going to talk about Rhys's tokens. That is his private choice. And so, yeah, we're just not going to talk anything about that. But I am buying more tokens. So if Rhys is selling, I will probably be buying some of his tokens. but even if he was or isn't, this is not the forum that we will never discuss those type of things. It's a personal decision. And if you don't like a team selling tokens on any project, and FYI, that happens all the time. They're not expected to hold the tokens for it. So I'm sorry, that's just really frustrating that I'm seeing that question. And so I'm trying to help educate the space. Maybe you're not aware that that happens all the time. And that's part of the reward system for being early before they got paid, right? Like a lot of these people, they're putting in the time and sweat equity without getting a paycheck. And that's what these tokens are for. So if whether it's VeVe team or any other project team, like they have that right to those tokens, and they can sell when or however they want as soon as those are unlocked. So we're not going to talk more about that.
I will happily just touch on a couple of things there to that.
Okay.
Point. I think people have this misunderstanding that the entire team gets some sort of token allocation or got it from the start. I'm not a founder of this company. I didn't get a token allocation. I didn't even get paid for the first 12 months of working for this company. Dan and David didn't pay themselves until we launched the product. And they obviously have a token allocation as founders, which you can track hasn't been touched. So outside of that, no, the team purchases tokens the same way everybody else does from the market. And as you say, it's up to them if they choose to sell them at any point. It's not on us to dictate people's finances there. But yeah, there's not some big conspiracy where we're all getting paid out of huge bulks of tokens.
I get a little bit fiery, man. Like it's just absurd. I feel like the team is correct, and they don't understand all of the time. And so, and number one, I assume that you got tokens, and that's surprising that you didn't. But okay, so you divulged that information. But just in general, even if you did, there's a lot of time and effort that people put into building up these companies and things, and those tokens are there to help for that support. That's the risk that they take, right? So, but yeah, okay. Thanks for addressing that, Rhys.
I was a pre-sale investor in Ekomi, so way back in 2018, and they had really responsible lockups, and that's something I liked about it, right? And at the time that wasn't normal. They were going to lock up their tokens for like 3 years, and I was like, wow, that's really responsible. But that 3 years eventually does come, and so yes, team members that were part of that have the ability to sell. And can you blame them? Say, from where the early price was, right, or even where the last bear market was. I mean, people are feeling like the price is low now. Rewind 3 years ago and look where the token was, and it's way up from that. And so, yeah, like if, people have life needs, some of the early team members, if they are selling to get that car that they want, I wouldn't blame them.
And look, it's easy to look back now because the company has been successful and say, well, why do they need those tokens, right? But back then, when we hadn't sold anything and we were bootstrapping for 4 years to try and build a product that no one in the world had ever built, those tokens were almost a lifeline, right? And to that point, they still didn't unlock for 3 or 4 years past the token generation and all of that. There you go, Alex. I'll send you one after this, bud.
Alex G in the house.
I get people.
We got to make sure that's the real Rev Alex G, though. There is an imposter that keeps popping up on these channels. So, yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
So, look, it is a misunderstanding of a lot of people that come into this industry and don't really understand those allocations. And most of the time, it's because you're in an industry full of startups, right? And that can be the difference between a company making it or not. And there aren't many companies in this space that have had the early success that we have had. So, to your point, if people need to sell that to live or to keep their company running or to try and change the world in some little way, then you really have no grounds to hold it against them. In mind.
Yeah. I'm just looking through the chat here to get to other questions.
Get some of those super chats, Rain. I mean, people are.
I think we've hit a bunch of them. Ekomi Skywalker had one early. And I featured it, but didn't address it. He gave us just a super sticker.
No, but so, yeah, there's been a couple, I mean, and you can't answer, but it's fun to talk about. Like, one of them was like, when not Empire Strikes Back, but like basically Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker, some of like when Jabba the Hutt,
I didn't see those super chats. Here we go.
There we go. Return of the Jedi, Luke Skywalker. and then down below is another Jabba the Hutt one. So I'm pretty much guessing we love to show those. There's no expectation that they're going to talk anything about that until they're ready to release it to everyone publicly on their little thing.
We've learned our lesson. Well, I'd like to say we've learned our lesson on that. So I feel like it still bites us every now and again, but we try not to make announcements about announcements anymore.
Blockchain Comic says, I'll take Slave Leia and Java. Nice. I was so in love with her when I was like 12, right? I was like, she's so hot. Now I was like, okay. But back then, she was the hottest thing going.
Absolutely.
I like this question. It was actually along the lines of one of my questions. Can you define Ekomi and VeVe as if you were in 2030? So imagine 8 years in the future, or gosh, 7 years in the future. What would you hope that Ekomi looks like?
I think by then, augmented reality glasses will be a very prevalent part of our lives. Whether they have completely replaced phones or not, I'm not quite sure. But I think in that kind of future, in that kind of world, we're probably in a place where digital content really is more prevalent in everything we do, right? There'll be digital artworks behind me here, digital collectibles on shelves in people's rooms. Now, I don't know if we get there by 2030, but at some time around then or beyond it, I would imagine that, you'd be walking down the streets and seeing digital billboards, or walking through cities and there would be a floating Batman somewhere above a collectible store, and companies are really starting to use this kind of content and this kind of interaction to direct traffic and direct people to certain events, or reward people who are participating in their particular app or metaverse. Now, for us in particular, I think eventually we lose the restrictions of being tethered, right? Whether it's VR glasses or attached to a computer screen, and we eventually see a bit of a digital overlay of the metaverse, whether it's ours in particular or a mix of all metaverses in the real world, right? I would love to look at my house through augmented reality glasses and be able to make it look like a castle or a bouncy house or anything, right? You can customize everything about your physical world through a digital lens instead of having to rebuild that physical item. So, look, I think that's kind of at least one direction that the metaverse in general goes, and I think that we will play a very crucial role in that, obviously because we have all of the licensing partners to really make that happen and push this new narrative forward. Ekomi's place in that, obviously we are the token arm of VeVe, and the success of both are intricately tied to each other. So I would assume by then and over the next few years, we continue to make the Omi token an integral part of our ecosystem, and then further through the partner program, more into the gaming and NFT ecosystem in general.
You asked such a good question about what I would love to see, and I'll give it some more thought, right? Because I think about economics and people behavior all the time. Those are the two aspects that I've just always been passionate about, like why we as human beings do the things that we do. We're fairly emotional. We like to think we're logical, but we're emotional. And then economics, right? And efficiency. So I'll give that some more thought before I can give you a proper answer. But I can tell you I was really excited about the staking tiers. The tickets took a little bit for me to really understand if they were beneficial or not. But like I think Dr. Stuff was telling me about the bronze tickets and how he sees that going crazy for some of the bigger drops. I would like to see some things, those staking get access to things, not just the tickets, but access to some things differently. And even at the lowest tier, right? So that people get used to not only holding collectibles, but there's a purpose for them to figure out what this token is. Because a lot of people come into the app and they don't know much about crypto and they don't have any of the token yet. And so it would be fun if they then had some reason or purpose to also explore that side of things.
Yeah, completely agree. Completely agree.
So I got a question. Superstar Money asked a pretty good question. I know that this is more Omi focused, but like, so there's been articles. I mean, so Disney announced that Polygon went into their accelerator program, and there's been talk about some sort of Disney metaverse. But then there's been no talk about some sort of Disney/VeVe metaverse partnership. Is there anything that you can discuss along those lines? And again, with the understanding that if you can't, that's fine. But we do try to ask the questions that people in the chat who are here participating. Yeah, and obviously shout out to Superstar Money. They put out a lot of content, right? And so anything you can say?
There's not because I'll lose my job. But basically,
please don't. Then please don't. We need you, Rhys.
No. Just generally speaking of, a lot of people point to Polygon and Disney Accelerator. Like, these companies are storytelling companies, Disney in particular, right? And they're going to continue to explore a huge range of technologies that can enable the next stage of their brand development and storytelling capabilities. So that doesn't mean that we're not working together, right? Obviously, we're dropping Disney stuff every second day at the moment, and that partnership is in full effect. So, I would say to people, don't just read the news and assume that means deals are dead. but collectively, we're all working together to really try to push this new sustainable product narrative forward, especially with digital products, and help these companies to improve their brand awareness and storytelling. And that doesn't just stop because they're utilizing other technologies, right? All of these companies are licensing companies. We've seen DCs releasing stuff with us. They release stuff with HRO, and it's a very different type of product. That's going to keep happening, right? That's how licensing companies operate. So no, there's nothing more in depth that I can add to that, other than saying that obviously our relationships are very mutually beneficial to each other and very well intact.
Yeah, perfect.
We got a super chat from Bill Gardner. He had asked a couple times, and then he super chatted it. Is Rhys barefoot?
I am. Someone asked me this once on a stream, and I got my foot up on screen and was told later that was maybe not appropriate. So.
We'll believe you.
He is an Aussie. That is very common.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, there was another question or a statement in here that totally cracked me up. I had to remove myself because I'm sitting here laughing right after we were talking, and I started reading the comments. Come from Sailor's dad. I'd honestly prefer the team to dump their entire bag than to hear Lee continue to complain. Lee, I've known for a long time. I like Lee. And so he's probably just frustrated on that thing, right? And a lot of people are feeling that from the market. This is so normal. This is what crypto winters feel like. And so I had a little bit of an advantage my first crypto winter. And I had been an investor for years in real estate particularly, but also in stocks. And so I remember the down days of Amazon. I remember the down days of real estate and stuff. And so this whole idea of a bear market wasn't new to me. It's frustrating, especially in crypto, because it seems like time passes so slow, but we will come out of this. And so, especially because we posted this on Twitter and a bunch of people came in from Twitter. Twitter is where people often go to vent when they're frustrated about timelines. And we're human, right? We just said how we're not logical creatures, we're emotional. And so what a lot of people do is they dump during this time. They get frustrated and they find some excuse as the justification behind it, but it's really an emotional decision. And they get rid of what they have and they're like, I'm out. I'm never coming back. And then money comes back into the space because smart, logical people come in and say, wow, great. Everybody's leaving. I'm buying. Fantastic. And then the market then starts to turn around. And then those same people who dumped at lows come back in. And so I use that like as an investor, right? So last bear market, I was buying like crazy. Unfortunately, I didn't buy more Ekomi. I didn't know how to get updates on it. And so I kind of forgot about it till I was doing some videos, and one of my viewers like, hey, I want you to take a look at Omi. And I was like, Omi, I know Omi. So this is early March. And I looked at the charts and I was like, Ekomi, what's going on with them? And I was able to find the VeVe app. I had never even heard anyone talking about the VeVe app. And I'm like, what is this thing that has Batman black and white right here on the freaking app? And nobody is talking about this. It's amazing. So then I covered on my channel and half my channel revolted. They're like, stick to crypto. Get away from the Batmans and stuff. I was like, no, you don't understand this $80 Batman. Like, this is the best thing going. Are you kidding me? First Batman on the blockchain. So I think a bunch of people unsubscribed from me. They're like, unsubscribe. But I was like, I just saw the value and I couldn't shut up about it. So,
yeah. I completely agree with you. Right? This is a bear market. You see the same thing every bear market. And honestly, if you're going to make it in crypto, you need to make it to your third cycle, I think, before you believe truly that markets will turn around and come back. And as you said, they always will, because we always get to this point where things are very undervalued, right? Where most people make the mistake is coming in when things are really hypey. They've already run, they chase green candles around and get burnt and then blame everybody else because, how they were lied to, or it was this or it was that, right? That's a big part. For me personally, I just think that education in this space is vastly lacking. And shout out to you, Rain, and Dr. Stuff for having a channel and helping to educate people on how this actually works and how the investor mindset actually takes place. But it's a big reason why I partnered with Collective Shift through Ekomi to try and bring people some real actionable research and education. There are services out there that help you jump that learner stage, right, where everybody gets burnt, because it happens to all of us, right? It happened to me when I first got into crypto. It happens to everybody else. You do what you hear someone recommend because they got a couple of calls right. And that works until they get it wrong and until the markets turn around, right? And everything comes off. And then you need to understand that everything is, there's always someone on the other side of that screen, right? If you're buying something, someone else is selling it to you. And if you're selling something, someone else is buying it. But a lot of the time now, the person on the other side of that screen is a trading bot who trades the trend or trades against you, or the exchange trades against you in the case of FTX or things like that. Like, if you're not aware of these things, you're going to get burnt every time. And the only way you learn is by doing or by paying for some research, right? And having someone help to teach you these things. So if you're new to crypto, if you're feeling that emotional trough at the bottom of this bear market, all I can recommend is that you take the time to educate yourself as strongly as you can, because this market will come back, right? It's already turning around if we're looking at proper metrics and all the on-chain statistics. And you want to be prepared for that. You don't want to be sitting and burnt again.
Well, and you've come all this way. And what's interesting, right? So in these cycles, the last bear market, one of the projects that went absolutely parabolic was Axie Infinity. But I bought Axie Infinity. I bought it at its sale in 2019, its land sale, right? And for 18 months, it went down like crazy. And it seemed like nothing was happening, right? And then all of a sudden, it went back up to what I paid for it. And then it went above that. And my little $4,100 investment turned into $400,000. And had I not sold so early, and I was worried because they were supposed to release another quarter of the map for a land sale at any time at like a 15% addition from what they sold before. So when it had gone up like 10x and 20x, I was like, man, if they drop this other land sale. So I sold and was like, man, I made 100x. That's amazing. It did go to 12 million had I rode all the way to the top. And that was just through being patient. But a lot of people who bought in the initial land sale, I mean, they didn't still own. They didn't make a profit on that. They made a loss. They made a loss on something that did tremendous because they hadn't learned about cycles. Because we all come in during a pump, right? What do you think gets our attention? Our friends like, man, I just made 15x. And you're like, 50. Like, what is 15x? 15%? No, like 15 times what I invested. You're like, impossible. So that's what gets your attention. You come in, well, when somebody already just made 15x, you're late to the game. And so all of us come in after these big green candles. Where you make your money is sticking around during the bear market. And what I did, I can't tell you what to do because you're a financial advisor. I can just share with you what I did was I bought during the bear market. I made as much money as I could at my day job. And I just bought as much as I could. Not everything panned out from that. But some of the things going 100x sure made up for the ones that failed, right? Yeah. And that's how it works. If you think about the crypto space, this is early stage venture capital investing. Now, there's like regulation in some countries that they don't allow the general public access to anything early stage because they're not emotionally prepared for that. And sometimes you see these comments on Twitter and you're like, yep, they are not. But the problem with that is not being able to access stuff early stage. We also don't get access to the potential to make good money, the potential to learn the difference between what might do well and what might not, and in failing, because in the failure is when we learn, when we stick around. So like if everyone did a self-analysis, like when did I come in? What were my expectations? Okay. Oh, it went down. Shoot. What am I going to do now? My only concerns I had were actually answered. My concern was, okay, are the right people coming in on the tech side to really ramp this up so a lot of these milestones can be hit? Because VeVe's got a massive lead advantage over the competitors, massive. But they can lose the lead if they don't keep up on that. So that was my biggest concern or question, which I think was well answered. And I got some answers last night as we were talking kind of about this with Randy and some other people that are very in tune with what's going on. And Rhys, thank you for answering about the tech development, and Mitch and the new CTO that came on, and they're getting ramped up and on speed, and some more developers being hired, because that was my only concern. Because where this needs to go is going to take a lot more developers. Randy did ask a question. I haven't seen him jump on, so he asked me to ask it if he didn't make it, which is, what is Ekomi spending their money on? Like, where is a lot of their growth funding going towards or directed towards right now?
Yeah, we're not actually spending that much money at the moment. A lot of the dev sides is obviously happening through VeVe, and that makes that much more established. We will start to spend some money, obviously, to get the OUP functions in and tested and built and all that kind of stuff. And then at this, I'll say this year. I'm not going to put any sort of hard date on it because we haven't kind of established a full program for this yet, but we are looking to roll out the partner program where we start to either fund other games and other applications that use the Omi token, or it's a bit of a pseudo grants program. So the Tengoku is our first test run of that, really, and we've developed a tokenomic system as a play and earn game that we think will work, but we'll find out when it's in operation. If that does work, then we have a system that we can export to other games and other platforms like that as well. So that's sort of where the next focal point is once we start the development of the OUP and VeVeverse tokenomics and all of that. But it really is going to go towards the expansion of the use and utility of the token in as many places as we can put it.
I had a question too, that as you were talking about that, I thought about, and I thought about this before, like, so these collectibles have like high-res 3D models. Will VeVe allow interoperability that will allow like other apps, other platforms to be able to grab the data and reflect, and then maybe even reflect what the price is, so that the transaction might be able to happen there? Or maybe something that has showcases or something, and say there's Todd McFarlane Batman, it allows it to go in there, and then it will have on the information like, oh, this is from VeVe's collection and everything, and it's for sale on the VeVe app for this, and maybe they could click on it. It would take them to the VeVe app, and maybe they could buy it. Is VeVe going to interoperate with other things in the future? Because I think, some kind of capability like that will help make sure VeVe can dominate.
Yeah.
If some other app that gets built where everyone wants to display their stuff.
I think something like that is more of an API than an interoperability thing, right? It just needs to sort of reference the collectible or some of that image metadata and the pricing or whatever, and you can display that in other marketplaces without the collectible having to be moved there. So I think things like that. So
they'd be able to get the 3D file and everything, and just basically through the API represent
it. It'll be the 3D file, right? Obviously, part of we're a private company, and part of that strategy is app retention and bringing people back to the app. So it may just be a bit of a display or portrayal of information, and then a link back to the app to bring you back to VeVe, so that
so maybe a 2D image of it, so somebody could display it, and then they could also display what it's for sale for, and then maybe even a link that they link, and then give them the ability to download the VeVe app if they don't have it, or if
and to use all the features, right? It's part of
the VeVe app.
Part of our selling point is the augmented reality and the premium 3D models and all of that, which you don't get on a normal OpenSea marketplace, things like that just aren't enabled. So I think the drive will always kind of be back to our own ecosystem, which benefits everybody that's in it.
Okay.
So I just wanted to say a couple things too, along the lines of just patience. It's been interesting to see. I mean, even in the VeVe collectibles market, right? As prices have dipped, and then that's when you get the people panicking because they've overinvested, right? And so first of all, please just don't ever spend more than you can afford to lose. When I've told any of my friends about VeVe or Omi or any crypto project whatsoever, I say, this is an investment and it's a risk, and there's always a risk that something goes to zero. So, I mean, just keep that in mind. But one thing that people may not be aware of, because it is a pain to buy Omi on Bit4X for a lot of US people, that's the exchange that they can go to and buy that. And it did take me some time to tell some of my friends, explain them to like put your money onto Coinbase, as a Bitcoin, do all these transfers, right? If you learn how to set up a MetaMask wallet within MetaMask, if you have Ether, you can there's a swap function there where you can literally swap Ether for Omi, and you're going to pay a little bit more because of the gas price, depending on the time of day and how much is flowing there. But for people who want to learn that function, once you learn, if you don't have a MetaMask, learn how to get that MetaMask and set that all up. That is a really easy way. And that's what I've just started doing, because I don't want to take the time to send it to Bit4X and do all of those transactions. So that's another thing that just for people to be aware of if they're not.
Exactly. Even to that point, I don't think collectively you will end up paying more, especially right now while everything's kind of quiet, because by the time you pay a gas fee to send from your Coinbase wallet to Bit4X, the exchange when you buy on the exchange is free, but then there's a withdrawal fee as well back to your own wallet. So it probably ends up balancing out to be much the same.
Yeah, I haven't. That's funny. I haven't done the calculation. I just assumed because, and I guess I'm used to the days of ETH being, you know,
gas
40,
fees,
50 bucks for some, you know, minting an NFT or something. But I mean, I knew it was cheaper now. So that's a good point too. So for people who just want the ease of use of buying, like that is there. And the people who are crypto natives that really understand crypto, they also know that's there. So exchanges are great, right? For more and more like adoption, and it's easier for people. If you could just get it on Coinbase, yes, that would be great. But just that one step to my MetaMask wallet and then that swap function. You can connect to Uniswap if you want and do, I mean, anyways, but I just wanted to inform people, but that's another way to get Omi. That's a little bit easier than sending to exchange.
Exactly. And I'm of the opinion that it's worth that learning curve to set up your own wallet, be in control of the keys, all of those things. You know, we've just seen so many exchanges blow up in the past 12 months. And I think we're at the end of that contagion now. But you know, someone gave me the best analogy the other day for centralized exchanges. They said you should use them like a public toilet. You go in, you do your business, and you get out. Right? You don't leave anything there. You don't hang out and talk to people. You just get out of there, right? But you can only do that if you have a wallet, if you understand what that means to have a MetaMask or a Ledger or something like that, right? So for anyone that is new to crypto, or really as your friends and family come into crypto in the next 12 months when prices return and everybody gets excited again, it's on you to educate them properly. Right? Anyway, out there. So, you know, do it right. Help them out.
It's exciting where this tech is going, right? When I came in, you know, we used Ether Delta to trade on the ETH chain. And like you had my Ether wallet, which is like such a pain compared to MetaMask today. And where MetaMask or something else is going to be your trust wallet in 4 years is going to be amazing and probably much more user friendly. Like MetaMask is so much more friendly than my Ether wallet was.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I think they bought my Ether wallet in the end, didn't they? There was two. There was my Ether wallet and some other ETH one. I think they combined forces, or MetaMask asked them when they bought them out. Yeah.
Now, can you answer questions on MCP? We hadn't gone into that much. We talked about the Omi utility program, but Mark here said, can you please ask about MCP? The user experience is not good for collectors, and some real answers about when this will happen. By user experience, I think you just mean patiently waiting or impatiently waiting, as many people do, for the MCP stuff to come about. So I guess we're already getting the points, but that's all that's going on with the MCP right now.
Correct. Yeah. And you know, we were targeting sort of the end of December to try and have that out. Didn't quite hit it. And then obviously the wire payment issues have pushed our little ecosystem back a little bit. But I think we're expecting the first phase of MCP to be out in the next few weeks. Mitch will obviously come back out and give us a bit more of a timeline update. And as soon as we have that, we'll share it with people.
In the first phase of MCP would be which operations?
The first phase is it backward calculates all of your points, right? So every day you're accruing points based on your sets and what you're holding, and I think the rarity, if I remember correctly. And I think it comes out with your ranks and levels as well. But there is an article on the VeVe blog all about it. So if you haven't seen it, that will lay out the phases that it will roll out in.
I want to see what Dr. Profit's points number is.
Like it's going to be interesting, right? I mean, there's plenty of people with huge collections out there, but it doesn't necessarily mean the structure of their collections will have them at the top of the leaderboards. That depends on their sets and rarities and all those things too. So yeah, it'll be interesting just to see where people land. I think it'll add obviously a new fun competitive layer to the game of collecting as well, right? As people kind of, everyone likes to flex.
Especially if you create some kind of leaderboard and like changes in leaderboards, right? So HRO did a good job with that. But changes in leaderboards too, right? So most people aren't going to have the funds to catch up to Dr. Profit, though you can too if you start a really successful company that makes you hundreds of millions of dollars in your day job. You will have more funds to buy cool collectibles.
Exactly right. Exactly. Build that in the VeVe-verse, maybe you double dip. Right?
Right, exactly. That's what he's doing, and that's what he's excited about. Cool. I'm just checking through the comments. Really fun interaction, as well as like the chat has its own life, right? I was trying to take a moment to get caught up, and it took me like 100 moments.
But Rhys, I want to be cognizant of your time and your day. Do we got maybe like a couple more minutes with you? Maybe ask one or two.
Yeah, we can do another 5 minutes.
Just like wrap that up.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw anything there. Let's see. Yeah. Some of the chat here is just.
So I had a question. My wife has an account, and so they talked about merging accounts, which she in the day used to get excited to like get drops with me, and now she's like on to other things like Louis Vuitton purses and stuff in real life. And so it's like, so she hasn't even KYC'd yet, and I'm like, babe, you got a KYC, and she's like, oh, okay, anyway. So when I sit down and go through KYC with her is probably when that'll happen. But we might just like want to merge the account with mine. Any idea on when merging is going to happen?
Yeah, same thing. So MCP, merge accounts, and the waitlist are the next 3 bits in the development pipelines, and they should all start rolling out. If we start hitting this 2-week sort of development cadence, then assuming the first one rolls out first week or second week of February, then you can kind of expect the other 2 to roll out in the concurrent weeks. So it should all be, coming to a head in the next 6 to 8 weeks. I would say all 3 of those features would be either out or close to it.
Perfect. Dr. Stuff, you see any questions out there? We just have to ask before we're done.
I mean, no. I mean, there's a couple of questions on Twitter and that have kind of been sporadically posted throughout this chat, but I just know that you guys can't talk much about it. But I'll ask it because so many people are asking, right? But any thoughts? And Valentin Zamorano kind of touched on it a little bit. But like VeVe had talked about in previous AMAs about, sports related type IP or music related. Is there any idea on if any of that may be coming in 2023, or can you talk even in broad terms about any of that?
I can allude to it because David did at DesignerCon, I think. I think he confirmed the next 2 main verticals were sports and music. As to when they will roll out or in what capacity, no, I can't really speak to that. That's not it's not public knowledge. I'm not even privy to that yet. But I know that that's kind of what they're aiming towards.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's all the questions I have, and thank you to the audience members who joined in. And yeah, I felt some frustration from some of them. That's so normal in this crypto winter. I went through the last crypto winter. It was as bad or worse then. And just know you're not experiencing something new. This happens every couple of years in the crypto space, as well as the pumps are amazing. The crypto winters are bad. I have a friend that stuck through 3 cycles now. And I say friend, I know him just a little bit. He is worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Is that normal? No, it's not normal, but he stuck around. He's only like 28 and he stuck around. Another person that I know loosely, but I've talked to him a number of times. He's worth over $1 billion from crypto and he's 29. So is that normal? No, we're in this thing that's very not normal. This is the technology moving forward. Do I know that any of this will happen? No. Yeah, like there's always risks. Any company can fail, even if they have the best company. A meteor could strike the building while they're in there having a meeting. So there's no guarantees. That's why it's called risk versus reward. And we're in that space. And it's fun to me that we have some of the top brands, some of the things that I think in the future people will want. And that's why VeVe and Ekomi both have my attention, right? VeVe on the collectible side, Ekomi, I have a bunch of the token myself. And Rhys, thank you so much for taking some time, joining joining the audience, answering these questions. It's been great.
Yeah, I really appreciate it, guys, and really appreciate what you do and all the education you help to provide people. So keep it up, and thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Cheers.
Wasn't that amazing? He's so cool and likable, which when we met him at DesignerCon, that was my first time meeting him. Was that your first time meeting him?
Yeah, it was my first time, and I told him, I just said, it's so funny. Like, you're just so personable, like on screen, and you're even more personal in person. I was like, I didn't even think that was like possible, but he's just chill and relax and just so open. What a great guy, and what a great person to. I mean, I know that the community gets frustrated when there's certain answers that, or he can't answer certain questions, and some of that for the community, right? When we're talking about sports or things like. There are NDAs, right? You break those NDAs, you lose the IP. So as much as I would love for them to divulge, secrets or, like more information about it, I would actually rather them not, so that we keep that IP and things. But man, what a treat to have Rhys on. I was so excited that he was willing. When I asked him, I'm like, would you be willing to come on Rain's channel? We got a great audience, Rainmakers, and I know the VeVe fan will be there in force. And that was great.
it's really fun to see the progression about this. And like, I guess a different way to think about it when things hit these lows and it feels so frustrating is what I did last crypto winter is if I believed in the future of the project, and some stuff I didn't believe in the future. And so I didn't usually sell that stuff, but I bought more of the stuff that I did believe in. What I wanted to see was, is their roadmap viable? Like, do they have the right team? What's interesting about Ekomi, this isn't something that was last crypto winter I could ask is the company profitable? Do they have some kind of revenue coming in? Because almost no crypto project had any kind of revenue coming in. So as I look forward, right, I don't even invest in many projects that have a market cap where Omi's is. I go for the even riskier stuff. But Omi does have revenues coming in. They have the top IP. So I'm excited they're bringing on some more devs. So I'm like, this future makes sense to me. Are there any guarantees that it'll come together and happen the way I think it will? No. But what's amazing is when I saw they had the first Batman on the blockchain, and nobody was talking about it at the time. I couldn't find any videos on it, and so I covered it, and I was like, I felt very uninformed at the time. Like, man, I invested in this project, but I don't know what's going on with this app. But it is the first Batman from what I can find. I think this will do well. And sure enough, it did. It went 200x to the top from there. And it's since pulled back. It's still up like a 12x or something from what the initial price was. And what it confirmed to me is, yes, other people will see the value in this too. So do I think Ekomi has a bright future? I think if their tech team really is amazing and functions together well, I don't think anyone can catch them. They have such an advantage with the major IP and stuff that as long as they just do pretty dang well, even these competitors that will come in and throw hundreds of millions of dollars going to have a hard time catching up. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I agree. And, I can't iterate it enough that if you can just be patient, during this whole interview, especially when we're talking about waiting on things and how long things are taking for certain things to develop, I think about that tweet back in 2014 where this guy was like, you know what, Bitcoin, it really hasn't moved. It stayed at like $4, and I'm sick and tired of waiting. I'm selling everything. And, and it's been created, like that tweet is like a meme now, right? That people look back on. He just wasn't patient enough, right? Like, I think that at some time you look and you see they're building all these foundations. And I think that we asked some good questions about the devs, right? Like, how is this progressing? What is Ekomi spending their money on? And yet we're still getting some more like broad answers on things like when we're going to start seeing some of the iterations. But Rhys said beginning of February, we should start to see every 2 weeks that progress, right, on different updates to the app and things. So that's what I'm going to start looking at, right, for progress towards MCP, other functions within the app, and really starting to build this out as they're getting that, what do you call it, the sprint cycle or that dev cycle, that 2 week cycle down pat. So a lot of information there, but we got to be patient. And I think that if we are, and like you said, it is a risk. Everything is a risk there, but those foundations are there. I mean, I've done so much research on VeVe. Like I've probably researched, you and I, like through some of our venture capital groups, looking at all of these different projects, hundreds of different projects, and VeVe hands down has such a solid foundation and business plan and purpose with the token that I'm really excited. So I'm hodling, like I'm buying more during this down market, and if it goes to zero, I'm not overextending myself. I could go to sleep at night. I'll be pissed, but I'm not going to lose sleep. I can still pay the bills and everything. So anyways, I love this AMA. I thought it was great.
Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. We've got this rap. I wrote the words to this, and this I had this rap produced by this great guy out of the UK who's a rapper, because I can't rap and my singing voice is terrible. So he actually, did the lyrics. I wrote the lyrics and he actually performed it. This rap is just the principles that it takes to be a successful investor over time, and realize that whether you entered this space thing as an investor or not, the more you do understand investment, the mindset, the flows, that's what's needed to make good money over time. And that's what this channel was created for. This channel isn't a money making thing for me. I don't make money from this channel. Like sometimes I make like 1,000 or 2. In my day job, I used to make 1,000 an hour. So it's like, that's nothing for me. So the channel is really just a way that I can teach people the principles of investing so that they can understand these. But I only made the commitment through 2025, and I know some of you want me to stick around longer. That was just a 5-year thing. So I started this channel in December 2020. I'll do this through December 2025. After that, I make no promises. I might be spending 3 months or 6 months out of the year on a beach somewhere. Thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy this wrap. It was created for all of you just to kind of reinforce these principles in a fun way.
Came into the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit bad before you could. Was taught to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I missed. Cause I always make the time in mind. I take the one out cause I'm patient like that. And I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. The principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Buy when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Make the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, the time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this wrong cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. Sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go with the hate, let the haters be crafting. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Make the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough. And that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.